Welcome to the bazaar. Today we're going to make custom stamps. This rubber is a new material for me, so we're going to have to do some testing to figure out the best way to cut it and engrave on it. And then we're also going to have to make a wooden back for our stamp so that it has nice even pressure when we push it down. Let's get it started. Whenever I use a material for the first time, I typically use this OhmTech material testing file, and I like it because it does both cutting and engraving. But I wanted to give the Lightburn material tester a chance, so I used that. I tried a couple different times, a couple different ways. I think there's still more for me to learn on it. So I did 2 passes with the Lightburn material tester at different material settings for the power and speed, and none of them made it all the way through the material. And it's very possible it's just that hard to cut, so we'll have to do a little bit more testing. But I did go ahead and use the engraving test from the OhmTech file, and it worked out pretty good, but you can see there are a couple flare-ups, so you have to be very careful when engraving on this rubber. Alrighty, so we got some plain paper here, a black stamp ink pad, and our gradient test. So it's less powerful to most powerful. There's a pretty good ridge in there, so I think it'll work out. So of course, when we make our personal stamp, we're gonna have to mirror the image and then also inverse it so that the part we want to get stamped is popped out and the part we don't want stamped is engraved. But let's just see if this works. All right, so like that, and let's just give it a go. Okay. So if we look, you can see the little individual lines dividing the intensity levels, so that's good. And then at the higher intensity, you can see there's a pretty clear border. So I think we do have to do some pretty high power when engraving on this stuff to make a nice differentiator. This is a simple logo that I made a long time ago for myself that I like to use when testing something out. So all I did was make a negative of the image so that we're leaving the JB logo proud and engraving everything else. And then I went ahead and mirrored the image so that when we stamp it, everything looks right. And all I did was make a simple oval shape to cut the stamp out. Then I set the cut power and speed, and I did several passes because this is pretty hard to cut. And then I did the same with the engraving settings. And I used Air Assist on the engraving because it does seem to help with the stamps. A final few quick touch-ups by making the stamp the right size, and I used a mask on the shape so that we're not engraving any more than we need to, and we're ready to go. Well, I let my shop air out for a bit because this stuff truly does reek, and you can see it's left quite a bit of powder on it, so I just got a cup of water and a brush. I'm going to try to clean it up some, and we'll dry it off. And I know we should wait till we have a nice wooden back for this, but I'm too impatient, so I got the stamp pad ready, and we'll test it out. See how it goes. Having Air Assist on during this engraving, I think, was the right choice. Better, but this stuff is really sticky. So it really wants to cling onto that white residue. But we'll dry it off and give it a shot and see what happens. You can look right there. I didn't crop it just well enough, so there's a little bit of unburnt rubber right there and there. So I'm going to trim that off real quick. Otherwise, that'll get ink on it. In fact, take a look at this water. It might be hard to see on camera, but you can see gray sludge all in there. Got just an X-Acto knife here. I'm gonna try to just trim off that raised edge a little bit. See if I can avoid having to cut all the way through. Well, there we go. Took quite a bit of pressure, but able to cut through it. Okay, let's do it on the top as well. There we go. Okay. So this is obviously backwards for now. That's the J, that's the B. But when we stamp it, it should be right. Let's give it a shot. This isn't the newest ink pad, so we'll see how well it works. Okay, so definitely in the areas that are big blank areas, the rubber is flexing to touch it. I bet if we did a cutting pass relatively close to the design, we could avoid that. But it does actually look pretty good around the actual stamp. So I think that's what I'll do. I left the rubber in the laser cutter, so I'm going to put this right back in it and cut just the negative out, and we'll see how that goes.
Here I just made a quick blob shape that fills out the negative space in the stamp, and I'm going to use the laser to cut that out.
So that didn't take too long. So I got the inside cut out now. So there's just a thinner border around the stamp. I'm sure the wooden back will help alleviate that to begin with, but now that I think about it, I have seen stamps do this in the past, so it makes sense. So let's go ahead and give it another shot. It's a little wiggly now, but that's okay. Like I said, the wooden back will help with that. Okay. Oh, I wiggled it some, but okay. So getting there. Definitely don't have the stamping technique down, but looks promising. Okay. Okay. Getting there. Yeah, so it looks a lot better. I think putting a backer on this will really help, and then I'll actually probably trim out this section again just with an X-Acto knife. I don't need to laser that out. The good thing about designing this in Lightburn is I can use the same exact Lightburn file that I used to cut the perimeter to cut the wooden backer, and it'll be exactly right. So let's go ahead and design that and get to it.
The only thing special I did here was add a little hole in the center for a peg so that you can hold the stamp without getting ink on your fingers.
So I've got my cutout little backing, and I've got a little peg that I made from just a small dowel rod, and I'm gonna use that to hold it together. And I've never glued to this material before, so I'm just going to use some basic super glue and a little bit of super glue activator, and we'll see how it goes. It's showtime. So we can see how they looked before. And now let's go ahead and try it out now that we got a nice solid wood backer and some of that negative space removed. Let's see how this comes out. And hopefully I won't get as much ink on my fingers this time. It's better already. At least that's what I tell myself. All right, moment of truth. And straight up. Oh man, that looks great. That looks super great. There's a little bit of extra ink there and there, but this looks great. I'm sure I'll get better at it with time. I'm gonna be stamping everything now. Beautiful. Making my own stamp has been on my to-do list for quite a while, so I'm really glad that I finally have one of my own. And of course, right after I made one, I had to make another. And I learned a lot from the first one. Like, I probably should have pointed out which way is up. So on the next ones, I've engraved the stamped image on the back. So that way you know exactly where it's gonna go. Today really was an exercise in trying something new, and I learned a whole lot. I learned that cutting the rubber is actually pretty difficult and actually requires quite a few passes and pretty strong power on my laser. I also learned that the smell of burning rubber is very strong, so please use a good extraction fan and in a well-ventilated area if you choose to use this material. I'll have the link that I used to purchase it down in the description. It cuts really well and engraves really well, but it is pretty messy. So there's a little post-processing for some fuzzies, but I think the end result's really great. I'm just gonna be stamping everything I make now, so look forward to that. I hope you had fun and learned something, and I can't wait to see you next time at the bazaar.
Thanks again for joining me today. Please leave a like and subscribe for more crafting videos in the future.